Hello, welcome back to another one of my videos where we pessimistically scorn upon literally everyone on the face of the earth and discuss what horrific dramas have graced themselves across our planet this time. And no, before you start asking, this isn't about another shooting, because let's face it, they're commonplace now. In between America having to pretend like they care about the lives of their citizens, with nothing actually ever being done about anything, various places in the Middle East getting bombed relentlessly non-stop, but never getting any media coverage because, let's face it, they're not middle class or above white people, and whichever dairy or corner store is getting robbed this time, having bullets ripping out your internal organs and everything you may live for just seems to be becoming another everyday occurrence, which is pretty sad really. And please note when I say this generalised group doesn't seem to care, I say that because that is literally how it looks to everyone else. I'm not saying that certain individuals don't care or have a heart, but for people's lives being on the line here, any pretense of progress being made is looking more than a little half-hearted. But other than my scathing scorn towards those who couldn't seem to care less about people suffering and dying, what is it that's ticked me off this time, you may ask? Or maybe not ask, or perhaps you might not even care. But you're here watching this video, so unless you plan on uploading one of your own videos stating your own opinion and blasting me relentlessly on it, because, let's face it, I'm a person on the internet, stating their opinion. Things are bound to get nasty sooner or later. But what's new in the world? I'm about to pretend you've inquired. Well, in between an Irishman getting arrested for, you'll never guess, speaking his own language, not to mention an official language, the UK deciding it's suddenly an okay thing to start putting people in jail for pretty much looking at political content on the internet, which they don't think people should be allowed to look at, and a Louisiana teacher getting both arrested and assaulted after being invited to talk by the school board, and get this, she actually talked. She didn't speak out of turn, she raised her hand and waited, was requested that she speak, but apparently if you're a superintendent about to receive a $38,000 pay raise and you're suddenly asked about the intense lack of pay raise regarding all the local teachers for over 10 years, that's ground to escort said asker out of the room, shove her to the ground, and then blame her for resisting arrest because she fell when you shoved her. You being a much larger and stronger male, and her being in handcuffs with no way of protecting herself or resisting in any way, shape or form. I wish I was making this up. You can literally Google everything I'm talking about, however, and you will find countless article after article on the internet discussing things such as, can government officials have you arrested for speaking to or about them? Or, is it okay to infringe upon people's freedom simply because they're looking at or saying online doesn't measure up exactly with our own beliefs and standards? And I can see this now. I can literally predict people arguing that, oh, it's not so bad, because law officials banging into your house and ripping you out of bed at 3 AM in the morning is because you view terrorist content online, or anything about jihadism, which is apparently the definition of what far-right content is to anyone who's just about as blonde as I am. But get this, if we ignore what our history is, we will only be doomed to repeat it. It's a saying I read online a bit of a while ago, and I agree, you know. I think people have every right to learn about what horrific acts humanity is capable of. And I'm not saying this from the place of one who's secretly looking up extreme ISIS terror tactics online. I mean, I might one day, but then I'm a curious person, who isn't to some degree. What entitlement do we have as humans to just sit there and pass judgments over anyone else who isn't us, when we don't even know what they're going through personally? I want to know what other people are like, and who they are, or what they believe in. But when you are this big important person, in a position of power, trying to censor people, it doesn't matter how right or valued your ideas may be. The minute you try and force that onto people, you end up looking bad. You turn into a dictator, into a tyrant. If I was going to be really outgoing here, I could almost say you become something of a terrorist yourself. Because we can't even communicate in this day and age. If we don't even have the privilege to be able to learn new things, then what are we? If there is something inside of you that wants to lock away a person for literally years on end, completely taking away from their life and livelihood, not to mention completely ruining any aspects of a career for them, because I don't know how it is anywhere else, but from where I come from, you'll be lucky to find a place that'll hire you once you've got any resemblance of a criminal record. Who even are you? It might just start as censorship of political views today, but I can guarantee that it never just stops there. Once people have a taste of what they can get away with, and this happens literally every time, given that humanity as a collective can pretty much be promised to be crummy at least 99% of the time, it won't stop there. Next, it'll be our speech, for saying something that's deemed pessimistic or negative, or it'll be for not upholding X set of beliefs. Then, when the position of power changes, we'll be held for account for having to support that set of beliefs which is now being deemed as disloyal and extremist. And it'll go on and on until we will literally be like North Korea and China, prosecuting people because the way they wear their hair is wrong, or because we got past their firewalls and watched a video on YouTube this one time. So, excuse me for coming across as less than happy. I'ma ask you to forgive me for being ticked off to some degree, because everywhere I turn, I'm just seeing tragedy after tragedy and we can just do so little about it. It's infuriating and frustrating. The only thing I can feel I can do right now is to speak up, so speaking up I am. Here's another disturbing art piece of mine. Let's hope it causes somebody to think something, or at least feel uncomfortable enough to get something done. Until next time, ciao!